Hi, I'm Ellen from the Chili Dog, and we're heading into week 4 of the It's Alright Mystery Knit Along hosted by my friends at Makers Mercantile. Today I'm going to show you how to do the I-cord bind off that's recommended in the pattern. The I-cord bind off is not difficult, but it is both time and yarn consuming. It's going to be almost like knitting 3 rounds, and at this point you know our Möbius has very long rounds. I think the bind off is well worth the effort on a Möbius because it creates a very polished finishing touch. However, if you're running low on yarn, you can bind off a different way and still be able to create a neat and stretchy finish. I'm going to be binding off the small sample Möbius that I cast on in the week 1 video, not the actual pattern piece. So things are going to look just a little bit different, but the process is going to be exactly the same. So let's start our I-cord bind off. And to begin, we actually need to cast on 3 stitches. So I'm going to just cast those stitches on using a knit cast on. So I insert my needle knitwise, knit a stitch without dropping it off the left hand needle, and then transfer this new cast on stitch back to the left needle. And I'm just doing that by slipping the stitch purlwise. A lot of times when you do a knit cast on, you'll twist the stitch. That's perfectly fine. You can do that, but there's really no need to in this case. So I've cast on my 3 stitches. And now we can start binding off. And the bind off is pretty repetitive here. It starts out by knitting 2 stitches. Oh, and I split my yarn there. I think I overworked it a little. So knit 1, knit 2, and then we're going to knit 2 stitches together through the back loops. So I'm just inserting my needle from right to left through those 2 stitches and then knitting them together through the back loops. Those are the first 3 stitches of my I-cord, and I'm going to go ahead and slip them from my right needle to my left needle without twisting them. And then we're just going to do the same thing. I'll knit 2 stitches. And then knit 2 stitches together through the back loops. Return them to my left hand needle just by slipping them without twisting the stitches. And continue on. So knit 2. Knit 2 together through the back loop, and then slip them from the right needle to the left. So you're making this nice rounded cord on the edge of your Möbius, and that's it. You're going to work all the way around doing that knit 2 and then knit 2 together through the back loop, and then slip the 3 stitches from right to left all the way around. I'm down to my last couple of stitches to bind off here. So I'm going to continue on just as I was. I'm going to knit 2. Knit 2 together through the back loops. I only have 3 stitches left. I'm going to return those 3 stitches to my left hand needle. 1, 2, 3. And then I can trim off the yarn tail. I just need enough here to finish things off. So I'm going to be grafting and then weaving in the tail. So you don't need a whole lot, maybe 12 to 18 inches or so, just so you have plenty to work with. I'm going to thread that yarn tail onto a tapestry needle. And now we need to join these last 3 stitches to the first 3 stitches we cast on. And I'm going to turn things here so that they're next to each other. This was the last stitch that I knit. Here's where my yarn is coming out. So I'm going to come through the first stitch on my knitting needle purlwise and pull the yarn all the way through, and fairly snug there. Make sure your stitches don't fall off the tip of the needle. And now we're going to join or graft it to the beginning. So we're going to find the 3rd stitch we cast on. So that's going to be the furthest to the right, and it's going to be this little V that is pointing down towards our knitting needle. I'm going to bring my yarn needle here from right to left under both legs of that 3rd cast on stitch and pull the yarn all the way through. Then knitwise through the first stitch on my knitting needle, dropping it off, purlwise through the 2nd stitch and leave that stitch on the knitting needle, pull your yarn through. Now we're going to look for the 2nd cast on stitch. Again, we're looking for that V that's pointing towards our knitting needle. So that's the middle stitch, and I'm going to again pull my yarn from right to left under both legs of that stitch and pull the yarn through. Just make sure things don't get caught up here on your knitting needle. Knitwise through the next stitch on your knitting needle, drop it off, then purlwise and pull the yarn through. You just kind of want to tighten things up here so that it's not too loose, the join stitches. This needle is going to want to pop out of your way, so you might want to just secure it with your hand so it doesn't go anywhere. And finally, we're going to come through the first cast on stitch. Again, we're looking for this V that points towards our knitting needle. I'm going to go under both legs of that V from right to left. Oop, and I caught a little bit of something else there. And pull the yarn through. And then we're going to go knitwise through this last stitch on our knitting needle and drop it off and pull the yarn through. I'm just going to tighten things up a little bit there by pulling on my yarn tail. And you can see the graft here is almost invisible. And then our last thing to do is to just weave in this tail. And you can do it however you like. All I'm going to do is just go through these edge stitches. Just for a few stitches here. You can go as far as you like. And I said this in a video before, I usually end up weaving in the tail a little bit further than I think I need to, just to make sure everything is secure. And you can see here too, the way I'm weaving in, the yarn tail is pretty much invisible and it's concealed here. So you can just continue on for a couple inches to get things tucked in. And then what I like to do, since I have this nice I-cord here, I'm going to conceal even a little bit more of the tail in. And I'm just going to go down through that last stitch I came up through. You can actually kind of run things down the cord through the center. It looks like I didn't quite go through the center. So you can see here, my needle is totally concealed inside the center of that cord. So you can't see it popping out. And again, just make sure that that's what's happening, that you don't see the needle. And then eventually you can pull it through. Pull your yarn through. Make sure things aren't too tight there. And then just snip off your yarn tail close to the end. And then pull a little bit and it's concealed inside and you can hardly see a thing. So it's the same on the right side and the wrong side. And it just has this really pretty finish. So I hope that you have enjoyed knitting your It's All Right Möbius. And I also hope you'll take a minute to share a picture of your finished creation by heading over to the Makers Mercantile group on Ravelry and posting a picture in the It's All Right MKAL discussion thread. Until we stitch again, happy knitting!